that you select, stop looking for magic, because it's not real. It doesn't exist. There's no fat-burning furnace bullshit. Your body's not going to switch its metabolism some weird way and all of a sudden you're eating all these tasty great foods, you're not hungry anymore, and you're burning fat. It just doesn't happen, right?
So what happens when you restrict carbohydrates down below 20 grams per day? What happens when you just don't eat any food for 30 days and you just go on a 30-day fast? Do you just die because now your body's liver glycogen is depleted and it cannot produce enough blood glucose to sustain that energy demand? You can only store approximately 4,000 calories worth of energy as glycogen and glucose. And within 3 to 5 days of just not eating, especially not eating any carbohydrates, all of those calories are gone. So what happens? Do you just drop dead now from a glucose deficiency? Because according to Dr. Mike Israetel, ketosis is a myth. I'm personally a huge fan of Dr. Mike Israetel. I just feel like he hasn't studied ketogenic metabolism in the literature enough to even understand what it means to be keto-adapted, or why they even call it ketogenic or ketosis in the first place, because it definitely seems like he's kind of twisting words around between weight loss and fat loss and doesn't understand. In ketosis, the whole reason why they call it ketogenic in the first place is because you upregulate beta oxidation to supply the majority of energy needs. Because once your liver is depleted, it needs to supply that energy somehow, so it starts breaking down adipose tissue and converting it into ketones, and also the glycerol backbone of triglycerides and other molecules that can be produced from the body fat can actually be used to produce glucose and glycogen. That's a more advanced topic I'll get into later. But ultimately, I think Dr. Mike Israetel's point is that there's no net benefit to weight loss between ketogenic diets and regular high-carb diets with protein equated, with protein and calories equated. If you are restricting calories, the amount of overall weight that you're going to be losing is going to be the same depending on the caloric deficit, regardless of carbohydrate restriction. But what Dr. Mike Israetel is messing up on is when he says there's no greater fat loss from ketogenic diets, because in reality, that's entirely why ketogenic diets are called ketogenic. It's because you're beta oxidizing fat into ketones, okay? And I will be discussing the science here very shortly and linking the studies down below. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Claim number 1. The high fat intake of keto diets teaches your body to burn more fat for fuel. And by doing this, keto puts your body into a special fat burning state. And thus, keto burns more fat than other comparable diets with the same calorie.
It's the carbohydrate restriction that can be induced through fasting or through just carbohydrate restriction, or by exercising so much more that you're burning those exogenous carbohydrates at a higher rate, especially in a glycogen depleted state. That's what induces ketosis and creates a demand for beta oxidation to provide more energy, a greater percentage of energy from beta oxidation from body fat. It's not the high fat intake. It has nothing to do with eating more fat. And that's actually a misconception that is pushed by a lot of ketogenic gurus. And they're also wrong. They're not speaking scientifically. They're speaking from their own gimmick nonsense. Gives supplement companies a reason to create special fat bomb supplements and nonsense to milk money out of people. But factually speaking, it's not the high fat intake. It's the carbohydrate restriction. It's the depleting of liver glycogen to the point that it creates an energy demand for beta oxidation to supply ketones and other energy substrates from adipose tissue.
Those are basically the 3 kind of interlocking claims.
If you keep eating butter and things like that at a rate in which your body is not keeping up as far as energy expenditure, you will gain weight. Yes. Obviously, if you eat a lot of fat, you just go and binge on a bunch of butter and fat bomb supplements, you're going to be gaining weight, okay? Because your body is going to store the excess calories as body fat. But in a ketogenic state, by definition, it's a scientific fact, you will be burning more body fat as energy. Don't binge on butter, and you won't gain weight, okay? So calories do still matter, but weight loss and fat burning, beta oxidation, they're two different things.
Here's why these claims are wrong. Your body does in fact burn more fat when you're on keto because you're eating more fat.
It's not because
and
you're
it's
eating more
burning
fat.
the fat that you're eating. And it's not burning any extra body fat whatsoever that we wouldn't predict by calories.
It's wrong.
Plain and simple. Okay? Second point.
It's been proven by studies to be wrong.
The generation and metabolism of ketones, because keto people are obsessed with ketosis. My ketosis, they got keto strips. Ketosis offers no special net fat burning results whatsoever. It just doesn't enhance fat burning in any magical way. So if you're doing a keto diet and you're in ketosis versus not in ketosis, it doesn't matter for fat loss at all. In a direct sense, at the very least. We'll get to some indirect stuff in a bit. Detailed laboratory studies have been conducted on keto diets and regular diets for a generation. When the calories are equated, it doesn't matter how many of them come from protein and carbs and fats and so on and so forth, the amount of weight you lose is basically the same no matter where your macros come from, if the calories are the same and the magnitude of the deficit is the same.
Okay, right here is the whole problem with this entire video, is that he just said the amount of weight that you lose is the same. Keep in mind, ketosis is about beta oxidation. It's about burning adipose tissue as your predominant source of fuel. Okay? Beta oxidation and burning fat for fuel is not the same thing as weight loss on a scale. So I'm not saying that calories don't matter, and I'm not saying that there's better weight loss benefits from keto. What I'm saying is, in ketosis, by definition, you are burning body fat as fuel. You are literally burning fat as your predominant fuel source. And right here, he just twisted the words, okay? So first of all, he said, for generations, keto diets have been studied compared to high-carb diets. First of all, I need to see those references, and I don't see any references cited. I don't hear him mentioning references. The reason why it's important for me to read the references, and I know none of his comment section are reading the references, is because these people commonly will say keto diets have been studied compared to high-carb diets. But when you read the study, they're eating 150 grams of, they're eating, anywhere from 80 to 150 grams of carbs a day. And these studies are actually low carb. And they don't even say keto diets. And mind you, when you're a caloric deficit, you will be producing a low amount of ketones. And so their definition of ketogenic is going to depend on the researcher involved. Second of all, there's a huge difference between overall weight loss and fat loss from beta oxidation. So we know for a fact, first of all, studies show the greater you decrease your carbohydrate intake, whether through fasting or whether through carb restriction, the more ketones you produce in your blood. Okay, so by definition, if you're producing more ketones with greater energy restriction, particularly from carbohydrates. And if you restrict protein, which I don't recommend for body composition or overall health, you can also produce even more ketones. And what are ketones a byproduct of? Beta oxidation, burning fat for energy. Now again, if you're consuming like 4,000 calories worth of exogenous fat, you're probably not going to be losing weight. And a lot of people try to say otherwise. But regardless of how much weight you're losing, eating a high-fat, low-carbohydrate, ketogenic diet, you are still oxidizing body fat as a majority of your energy. Regardless of if you're losing weight or not, you're still burning fat for energy. But you may be storing fat at a greater rate if you don't calorically restrict enough.
If you eat a decent amount of protein in both diets that are high fat and low fat, high carb versus low carb, then you actually conserve just about the same amount of muscle. Probably a little bit more even in the not super high fat diets, but I get ahead of myself. So once you eat a higher protein diet, whether or not you cut your calories a bunch from fats, which is not keto because you have a lot left for carbs, or you go keto and you leave a ton of fats in but very few carbs, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Almost the entire difference doesn't exist. You burn pretty much the same amount of fat and lose the same amount of weight no matter which one you're on. Okay? Calorie deficit is the key. And if you generate a calorie deficit by slicing a bunch of your carbs away, sweet, it works. If you generate a calorie deficit by slicing away a bunch of your fats, that works too, just the same way. There are some silver linings with keto because, a lot of people do keto and they do observe and sometimes get really good results. It's not just an illusion. Here's the deal. There's a couple things that are going on here. Not all people, but some people notice an appreciable reduction of appetite through a couple of different pathways when they do keto.
Okay, so the reduction in appetite, it does have a couple of different mechanisms behind it, but the main one is you are now adapting your body to burning directly caloric energy from adipose tissue. So throughout the day, instead of satisfying your hunger with exogenous forms of energy, like carbohydrates and pasta and whatnot, your body is actually directly receiving that energy that it needs. And remember, you're creating that demand through exercise and just through living and fulfilling your basic metabolic rate. It's fulfilling the energy demand now directly through adipose tissue. So you're not going to have an appetite because your body is now eating your body fat 24/7. Again, it does not mean you're going to experience more weight loss. Okay, the degree of weight loss you're going to experience is going to be dependent on how much energy you're burning throughout the day and then how much food you eat. But if you just follow your appetite and your appetite is suppressed because it's being satisfied by body fat now, obviously you're not going to be re-eating those calories exogenously.
It's not as hungry, especially after a few days or a few weeks. And
especially after a few days to a few weeks. You know why? Because it takes a while for your body to start to shift its metabolism towards burning body fat as fuel. So just like Mike Israetel said, it takes a few days to a few weeks for your appetite to go away on keto, because it takes a few days to a few weeks for your body to start producing ketones and actually adapting to burning ketones.
Otherwise would, or causes them to cheat.
I'll replay that so you catch that.
When they do keto, they're just not as hungry, especially after a few days or a few weeks.
A few days to a few weeks. Okay, takes some time for your metabolism to shift. But according to Dr. Mike Israetel, there's no shift in metabolism.
That causes them to eat fewer calories than
they
otherwise would,
incorrect.
Or causes them to cheat less than they otherwise would, and then they lose more weight. In addition to that, a lot of times what people do is they don't track their calories nearly as much as they'd like to believe. They sort of just eat stuff. And when they go to keto, the amount of tasty things you can eat radically falls off the map. Because almost all of the favorite cheat foods that you have, almost all the snackable foods that you love that cause you to overeat, they're not fucking keto. They have carbs and fats in them. And if you cut out carbs almost entirely, man,
spilled tea all over myself.
Goldfish snacks are gone. I don't even know what the point of life is at that point. Potato chips are gone. Ice cream is gone. You guys ever try keto ice cream? It's not the same. Burgers are gone. Who eats a burger with no bun? How much of that are you going to crave? Not much. Fries, pizza, pasta. There's all the foods that people overeat gone because they're not keto. So that's another big help. Some people get a sense of mental calm.
Okay, so he basically is implying that the whole purpose of life is goldfish, pizza, potato chips. If you feel like you need to eat potato chips, pizza, pasta, etc. in order for life fulfillment, you probably have some kind of addiction that you need to see a doctor for. I mean, really, are you a child? Like, oh no, I can't live without fucking candy and potato chips. Like, grow up.
When they're doing keto, which, coupled with the reduction in appetite, can make it a really sustainable diet, at least in the medium term for them. And once they're in the keto groove, they're going. They don't have the ups and downs of super high carb intake and weird mood stuff, as some people do experience.
Yep, that's called deriving the majority of your energy from body fat, so that your mood and energy is not dependent on the foods you eat throughout the day, therefore balancing out your energy and mood.
And then they're just good, and their adherence is really good. They stick to that
It's called a shift in metabolism.
calorie deficit, and then they get really great results.
Well
They'll
documented.
say, oh my God, I'm getting great results because of keto. It's like, keto lets you do the calorie deficit.
It's a calorie
actually
deficit.
getting you the great results.
It's a calorie deficit.
And because of this, lots of people lose a lot of fat and a lot of weight, and then they think keto is this magical thing.
It's crazy.
And they're wrong. It's not a magical thing, but sometimes it's effective for some people.
So, and I find it interesting how he has to keep saying over and over again that it's not magic, and all these people getting results is not because it's magical. So yeah, it's not magical, it's science, in which I've explained over and over again the mechanisms in this video so far. But he's constantly saying it's not magic, just because it works so well doesn't mean it's magic, it's still calories. Like, kind of sounds like he's scared, like, because it seems to work like magic. It's like it works like magic. It works so well, and people are thinking it's magic because they don't understand all the things I mentioned in this video. They don't know the science behind it, but they think it's magic. So it must work pretty damn well, and have some special weight loss benefits that, are not explained by calories. Now, they are indirectly explained by calories, but suppressed appetite, better mood throughout the day, that's caused by shift in metabolism, and yada yada. But again, if you still re-eat your calories through buttered coffee, you're not going to experience weight loss. But yeah.
On an adherence side. So, best practices, what do we do? What do we take away from this? First of all, if you want to lose fat, you absolutely can do keto. There's not a damn thing wrong with it. Unless you're an athlete and you're interested in maximum muscularity, maximum sport performance, carbs just beat fats almost every single time. So high carb diet's a really good idea then. But if you're just a regular person who just wants to lose weight, lose fat.
Just a side note, after about 4 to 12 weeks, athletes actually see a significant improvement in athletic performance. But the problem is most studies that these calorie counting gurus use are not done on long enough of a term. But Stephen Phinney, Jeff Volok, and some other people, scientists out there, which I'll try to link below, actually have done studies that are long-term on athletes and find even in strength and power sports, but especially in endurance sports, we do see an increase in performance as long as protein is equated and sodium is supplemented, which is a huge one that people don't think about. And I'm sure Mike Israetel has no idea that you need more sodium on ketogenic metabolism, considering he doesn't even know that you actually do oxidize more fat and produce more ketones the greater and longer that you restrict carbs. But yeah, you actually can increase athletic performance, or at least maintain it on ketogenic diets. But I don't really care about that. I'll give him that point here, okay?
Any other healthy diet that controls calories and feeds you mostly healthy foods is also just fine. There's nothing magical about keto.
And carbs are not the devil,
keto,
obviously.
Try it, because some
Just
people try
saying
keto over and over and they fail at it, and they don't know why. Some people try keto over and over and they get tons of success. If you are going to be trying keto, it should be because you get consistent results from it via easier adherence. If you're the kind of person that's like, dude, every time I do keto, I lose like 15 pounds in 3 months. It's awesome. I come back, I only gain 5 pounds. So over a couple of years, I've lost like 30 or 40 pounds doing keto every now and again, and then coming back to a healthy diet. Like, dude, you're the man. Keep doing it. But for every person like that, there's like 3 people. They're like, oh, I'm trying keto again. It's so tough. I hate it. It just makes me binge. If I don't go without carbs for 3 or 4 days, I freak out and I just want all the carbs in the world. Well, stop doing that.
If you don't go without carbs for 3 or 4 days, you freak out. Okay, well, let's see. Alcoholics will probably say the same thing if they don't go without alcohol. Cigarette addicted people, meth addicted people. All right. You technically don't need carbohydrates for survival. And so if you can't go without carbs for a couple days and then you like freak out and binge, maybe you have a problem. I don't know. But I don't think carbs are the devil or anything. I just think it's funny that this guy's saying, like, what is life without goldfish and potato chips? And also, like, it's okay if you can't go without carbs for 3 days, blah, 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 whatever. Look, I'm going to end the video right there. There's a couple minutes left, but he just continues to make the same mistake over and over again. Yes, maybe there's no difference in overall weight loss between calorie-restricted low-carb diets compared to calorie-restricted high-carb diets as far as weight loss is concerned, but weight loss is not the same as fat loss. And the fact is, ketogenic metabolism is defined by producing the majority of your energy demands from beta oxidation, adipose tissue, body fat, okay? So by definition, you will be burning more body fat as in a ketogenic state, okay? And in particular, after the 2-week mark, you'll find most studies that are actually doing keto properly, restricting properly, they are burning a greater rate of fat as fuel. And Phinney et al. 1983, I think, was the study. One of Phinney's studies, he actually showed that elite athletes that are keto-adapted, not only do they burn a greater percentage of body fat as energy, but they can also perform exercise at intensities of up to 90% or more from beta oxidation. So 90% of your VO2 max was what they measured. That's like what I do in Muay Thai on a regular basis. But the problem is that was like a 14-month study or something. You're not going to find many other studies like that. And so the point here is, look, if you eat a bunch of butter, drink butter coffee and whatnot, you know, you might be just storing more body fat from those extra calories of butter, but at the same time, if your liver is depleted in glycogen from ketogenic macros, you will still be producing most of your energy from body fat, okay? But doesn't mean that you're going to lose weight. So Mike Israetel is right, but wrong at the same time because of his constant mix matching of body fat burning and weight loss. It's not the same thing. And the title of the video, Keto Burns More Fat, Nutrition Myths. Okay, it's not a myth. It's scientifically documented. It's ketosis. It is a fact of science. Keto's not magic. It's fucking science. Okay, end the video. And if I have any crazy comments, you know, from his followers that, you know, are just assuming I'm a keto zealot, blah, 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 all I can assume is that they didn't watch the video, unless they actually debunk my points, okay? But most of them aren't going to watch the video. They're just going to, like, hear what they want to hear, and then they're going to justify their potato chip addiction, you know, and think they got to keep tracking calories the rest of their life or whatever. I don't care. Leave your question, comments down below, and let me know what you think. Talk to y'all next time.